From Triple Colossal Studios right to your headphones, this is Mike Andrula.
What a fantastic, compelling show. Danny Lobell, comedian, philosopher, Modern Day Philosopher. His podcast is called Modern Day Philosopher, and it's one that I'm jealous of because it's so well done. And he started so young in life. He's done so many interviews. He's been on Mark Maron's podcast, been on Artie Lange's direct TV show. He's hilarious. He makes you think. We talk about depression. We talk about how to make it. We talk about beauty, art, music, what we want to do in this world. And the guy is so giving. It's incredible. I mean, you're going to get the feel for it. So please subscribe to the Modern Day Philosopher. Support Danny. Donate. Hit the donate button. Show him the love. Hit him up on Twitter, guys. This is a man we want to support. We want him in this game. We want him to continuously do this. Hopefully he puts a book out because the conversations have been fantastic. He has guests Bill Burr, Larry Miller, Artie Lange, Mark Maron, and those are the big names. But there's so many great interviews that I don't want to ruin for you, but every single one is a piece of gold, and the idea that that's free is just why the internet is fantastic. So enjoy the episode. So you're just going for it, Danny. You're just living the comic life. So that's what I find interesting, and I wanted to find out what made you make the decision to be a comic.
It's something I've known I wanted to do from a pretty young age. I guess it wasn't until I was about 19 that I was sure I wanted to do it as a career. But I was out there doing open mics, for my 16th birthday, I guess while I was technically still 15. The last few months of being 15 is when I started doing open mics. But I didn't have any ambitions of doing stand-up comedy as a career back then. I just thought it was one of the things I liked to do. And when I was 19, I got back into it. I went away for a year to Israel. And for that year, I made some comedy short videos and stuff, but I didn't do much. I didn't do anything in the way of stand-up. And when I got back, I realized I was itching to do it, and it had been a year. And I got on stage in New York, and about a month or so in, and I said, all right, this is it. This is what I want to do for a career. But it wasn't until maybe about a year ago I'm 31 now, but I've been doing it more or less full-time, since I was 19. But when I was 30, I realized I've always been, you know what it was? It was Hurricane Sandy. I've always had backup plans because I've been full of fear and self-doubt that it's not going to work out. And a lot of that, comes from external voices in my life, But just feeling like there's no way that I'm never going to make a career, going to make a living at comedy. So I always had something else going on in the background, which usually distracted me from becoming the comedian I wanted to be. And when I was a kid, my dad, who's a photographer and has always struggled to make a living and support the family, told my brothers and I, said, I'm not going to be able to leave you boys with anything but debt. So don't expect your friends, you're sending us to a Jewish school where a lot of people came from affluent homes, and he said, they're all going to get the family business or the house or whatever. I just want you guys not to be under the false conception that that's going to happen for you. Don't get any, delusions here. He said, you guys are going to get nothing but debt. And don't expect me to help you in life and to be able to support you because I can barely support myself. And that really hit me very hard. So when I was a little kid, I started a dog walking business, and I started, making money doing dog walking, and then going to garage sales and buying anything I thought was collectible from about the age 7 until age 17. So 10 years. I just very diligently stored away collectibles in the garage in our home. And I had amassed, it started with dog walking, then it became other jobs and summer jobs, and I had amassed an incredible collection that would blow anyone's mind of everything you can think of celebrity autographed photos, of World War II memorabilia, of Beatles memorabilia, of baseball cards, of basketball cards, of football cards, of comic books, anything of old toys, anything that you can imagine, watches. I had hundreds of watches. Anything that I thought might be worth money one day, because I'm going to be fucked one day, and I don't know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to sell all this stuff, and that was my safety net. So I had thousands and thousands of dollars worth of collectibles in this garage, and when Hurricane Sandy came, everything was destroyed.
Oh, my word.
Every single thing. Record collection. I had all these original mint edition records. And the only thing I was able to save from everything was the vinyls. But I had to peel off, I preserved these covers for the vinyls in mint condition. And they were soaking wet. I just peeled them off to clean the records so that at least I could save the records, which aren't worth much now without the covers. I just kept them because I didn't want to lose everything. And it was really at first heartbreaking and still a little heartbreaking, but in another way it was freeing because I realized that was my last backup plan, and now that it's gone, I just have to go for it. It's kind of a long-winded answer I gave you for your question, but it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and when people ask me, oh, you're really going for it, I really feel like, yeah, there's nothing else now but to go for it. So, in a way, it was good.
Well, Hurricane Sandy, that caused me to be cut out of a movie, and I didn't get any FEMA aid, but that story trumps everything. I can't believe it ended as you getting everything wiped out. Where did you live?
I was in L.A. at the time, but I had saved all my stuff. I thought it would be safer if I left it at my parents in Long Island. I thought, you move around and I'm like, I don't want things to get bent or whatever. I'll just keep them where they're safe, and I'll keep them preserved. And of course, life has other plans,
Well, how did
and it didn't. You can't control things.
Well, I guess that's why you really. What caused you to start the Modern Day Philosopher podcast? Because you sound, I think you have one of the top, maybe 1, 2, or 3 podcasts, because it goes into the topics that I want to know about personally. For me, the idea of philosophy, life, where are we going, what happens when we die. Nobody likes to tackle these questions. We've had a bunch of. A couple of people give me crazy reasons or ideas what happens, but a lot of people just stay away from the topic. So you go deep into it. Why did you question what's happening in this life?
Well, the simple answer to this is that I was in therapy. This is actually around the time that Hurricane Sandy happened. I was working, doing a podcast for some other comedian.
Okay.
And I thought it was going south. The job was not working out. It's not important to go into the details, but I think both of us were to blame. And it just wasn't working out. And I could feel that it was falling apart. And my friend who I've talked about on the show passed away. He got very sick.
Yes, I know.
The illness progressed. All these things sort of happened at the same time. I was suffering from depression pretty bad. This job, I was really trying to make it work, and I felt like I couldn't, and I saw it was going south, and I was trying to hold on to it, but I could tell it wasn't going to work out. I guess I hadn't admitted it to myself yet, but I knew it in my gut that it was like it had gotten to the point beyond repair. The person who's very close to me their illness progressed, which hit me very hard. Hurricane Sandy took away all my stuff. I was very depressed. I was very disorientated. I was in LA, my first year here. It's now my second year. And I just felt very removed from everything. And I was in therapy, and I said to the therapist, I said, I'm not suicidal, but I'm not sure what I like living for. I said, I don't feel passionate to wake up in the morning, And that became a topic I would bring up in therapy for a little while there. I was not doing good. And what happened was, I started reading Maimonides, Guide to the Perplexed. I picked it up on eBay or something, and I thought it's kind of cool that a rabbi wrote a philosophy book, and me having this big Jewish background, and I've always had an intellectual curiosity for philosophy, and I hadn't given it much attention in school, and I felt like that ship had sailed, and I was disappointed about it, and I was like, when am I ever going to get the time to learn this big monster of philosophy? But it's something I want to do. There's things I want to do in life. I want to learn French. I haven't done that yet, but it's something I've always wanted to do. And I started going through these things with the psychologist of things that I want to live for, things that I want to do. I want to learn how to play the clarinet. I want to spend time in New Orleans. I want to live there for a little bit at some point. So I started making a list of the things that I want to do, and I thought I'll start with picking up a philosophy book. So I picked up the Guide to the Perplexed, and I was like, this is so interesting. This is so great. And then that led me to start exploring Baruch Spinoza, who was an opposing view. And I was like, well, that's interesting too. And then I was like, I would love to just, I had this epiphany in my therapy sessions. I said, one of the things I really want to live for is to learn. I feel like I'm not learning, and I'm not growing, and then it's just all stagnant. And we had a quote, I don't think it aired yet, but one of the episodes recently where it's like, if you're not learning, you're dead.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, man, that is true, I on the show, I even tried to play the opposite view to hear what the guest said. Sometimes I don't want to just jump in there and agree. I want to hear what the guest says. I go, do you think that's true? Not really the opposite view, but I kind of poke and prod a little. But I was thinking in my head, man, is that true,
Yeah.
And then I was like, and then the next progression in thought was, I wish I could, I'm not going to sit there and discipline myself to learn all this philosophy. There's so much out there. I don't even know where to start. I wish I had a tutor, but I can't afford a tutor. I was like, man, I wish I had money. I would hire a philosophy tutor. Then I thought, maybe I have a friend of mine who would want to do this with me once a week. That would be kind of a cool thing. We could get together and sit down and learn a piece of philosophy together, or learn about a philosopher. And then I started thinking, who do I know that might be into this? And then I was like, I remembered that Jackie Mason had said the day that George Carlin died, he told me on a phone call, he goes, he was more than just a comedian, he was a modern day philosopher. And since then I've heard that saying applied to comedians numerous times. It's like a common saying, modern day philosopher. And I said, modern day philosopher. And it always hit me. I like the ring of it,
Yeah,
Jackie Mason, modern day philosopher. And then I was watching Patrice O'Neill clips, which I often find myself doing because I miss him and I think he was a genius.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, this guy, I get it now. It kind of clicked. I'm like, I get why Patrice is great. He's not telling jokes. He's telling philosophy. And then I'm like, that's what I loved about George Carlin. Jackie was right. He was philosophizing up there. And then I thought about Mel Brooks and the history of History of the World, where he goes, you know, that line, he goes, I'm a stand-up philosopher, you know? And I'm like, that's why I like being a comedian. And that's when I started changing the way I do comedy, too, from less jokes and more ideas. Mm-hmm. And it got me excited about doing comedy again. So I kind of got into this hole where I didn't even feel inspired to go on stage when I was describing that time in my life around Hurricane Sandy. I was just like, what am I just regurgitating the same shit on stage? Like, I don't care about these jokes. And it gave me a reason to care. I started telling more ideas and sharing stories and stuff that I like doing more. I'd already started doing stories, but I started doing it more and weaving ideas into the stories. So I got a whole new passion for doing stand-up comedy, and then you know, the idea just was like, you know what? If we're all stand-up philosophers, I said, you know, I should ask a comedian friend of mine most of my friends are comedians anyway. I should start asking comedian friends of mine to study philosophy with me. And I think it was Matt Kirshen who I was talking to, and I had the idea as I said it to him. I go, hey, would you like to learn philosophy with me sometime? And he goes, huh? And I said, you know, like as a podcast. Now that I never even thought about when but I think it happened as I asked him. I was like, as a podcast, I'm thinking of doing a new podcast, and I just said it as, you know, as I asked him. The idea I think happened at the same time, or I'm thinking of doing a new podcast. I can't swear that's exactly the moment it happened, but I think that's when it happened. Either that or 2 minutes before that, but it was right around the time that I asked him that I also had the idea, why not record it? You know, it could be interesting, comedians talking about philosophy. And I'm giving you really long answers, but I have a lot to say about these things.
Trust me, I love it. The only problem is if I start pretending I'm listening to you on a podcast. But a couple things I was thinking. Well, I believe that comedians are, and this is when I was talking with Jimmy Schubert, this came up a lot, was that he's trying to cut and try to get to some truth to a joke. Maybe he wants to keep it funny, but in a lot of ways it's harder than philosophy because you also have to hold that attention. But you guys are the only ones out there that could honestly say things completely honest, even if it's offensive, which has got to be nobody. If you didn't do that, I don't think any other profession would be allowed to just honestly discuss topics, things that are going on in life. So I think that's fantastic. And another thing, I know I see that a bunch of like Hitchcock style intros you do, and you talk about Jackie Gleason, and I'm a big fan of much older comics. I started out, my father making me watch the W.C. Fields and the Marx Brothers. How did you get into like classic, very early comics? You're only 31.
Well, you're talking about Hitchcock. I am a huge fan of Hitchcock. I think, you know, I mean, there's nobody to this day who's been able to achieve, in my opinion, the feeling of suspense that he was able to, you know, and the master of suspense. So I'm not saying anything new, but so fear and laughter are very close emotions or reactions. You ever get scared? Sometimes you laugh. People laugh out of fear. So I think the two genres of suspense and comedy is about building suspense. It's just like, it's natural, I think, for a comedian to gravitate towards Hitchcock because he did part of what we want to do so perfectly. He was like, you know, it's like looking at a Van Gogh, you know? It's just beautiful and it's genius, and you're like, damn, I wish I could do it like that, you know? So
You're definitely
And then
shooting
it
for the
doesn't hurt
stars.
the fact. What's that?
I say you're looking. Well, hopefully most of these listeners know who Hitchcock is, and if they don't, go ahead and do a quick Google search, because it could be quite possible if we have a lot of younger people listening, they might not even know the reference. So it's a good thing you're discussing it.
Alfred Hitchcock, definitely somebody they should know about, if they don't already. And let's hope we could turn them on to something that great, you know?
Yeah.
But I just, it doesn't hurt the fact that Hitchcock had a weight problem, too, and I'm sure there's some relatability there for me, too.
Well, I could probably help you out with that. That's what I do part-time.
All right.
I mean, but of course, your emotional state is what you're thinking a lot. So I think you get up in your head. You don't realize how good the work is that you're doing. You keep saying, "Well, my work's not Hitchcock's here," but like if you can, I can watch. Remember the time you were on? I think it was I Don't Like Onions, and you're just doing a prank call.
Yeah.
And you just watch that and you start laughing hysterical. You don't even realize that's happening. You might be depressed at home, but you're bringing joy to so many other people. Or another fantastic one you did was the Nigerian scam email. And if I'm sure if you had, it was done extremely well. Who was the other comic in there? Was he a comic?
He's actually an actor. His name is Freddie. Man, I don't remember his last name. But I got the idea for the sketch. I wrote it out, and then I, loosely wrote it. And I said, I need a guy to play the Nigerian. So I had $50, and I posted up on Craigslist. Maybe it was $80. I had posted on Craigslist. Send me some video auditions, and LA is full of actors. That's the one thing we got plenty of. Mm-hmm. So a bunch of people sent me in videos, and this guy is a young actor, and I liked his videos, so it turned out he even lived in my neighborhood, so I see him now. He jogs around the neighborhood. So, I said, yeah, I want you for the part. He was wonderful. He was brilliant, talented guy, and fun to work with. And I actually saw him. He was out on a jog the other night. He said he got a bunch of work off that video. And I said, man, I got nothing off that. Yeah. But apparently he said he's been able to get work off it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, your characters are incredible. When you go into a couple different voices, just bring me back to your episode 35. It was with Mike. How do you say his last name? It's like he's the teacher from the South Bronx. Yes. Okay, and you go into that story and you just start doing your impressions of the students. Priceless. I can't even believe that wasn't just turned into a sketch show.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, he's a funny guy, Mike Strickland.
Every episode, right. 34 was one of the most powerful, but you also have huge. Your last show that aired was with Larry Miller, and you delve in. I've heard interviews after the head injury, and he didn't go nearly as deep as he went with you. Which I really am glad that you got him in there. How did you get Larry? I love how he was complaining about your house, by the way.
Yeah, see, no air conditioning.
Well, we'll talk about this later. I think we can get you some air conditioning. We'll get air conditioning by the end of this episode.
Yeah, Larry Miller. He did my old podcast that I used to do in New York, Comical Radio, and so I still had the publicist's contact info, and I sent an inquiry, and he said, "Sure, I'll do it."
Yeah, he's so good.
So, no more of a story than that, but...
Well, who was your favorite guest so far?
That's a tough one to answer, because I really enjoy talking to all these people, and I'm not just saying that to be diplomatic. I really enjoy it. But I guess some of my favorite talks, I don't know if it's really answering your question. I don't know if it's a favorite person, but the favorite conversations I've had have been with they've been with, Larry Miller is one of them. And
Bill Burr had to be up there. That was a great talk.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, Bill Burr. Lewis Black, I thought that one was...
Oh, yeah, I forgot you had Lewis Black. And Greg.
Lewis Black was probably my favorite conversation out of all of them, because I felt like I re-met Lewis Black in a whole new way that day. Like, I never knew him like that until that talk. But Artie Lange was another one I really... the Artie Lange one was interesting in another way for me, because I threw out a line that I thought was kind of funny and clever, about basically how Yoko Ono, like her husband was killed in front of the Dakota, and she still decided to stay there. That's how great the Dakota must be to live in. I said, and I thought that's kind of a funny line I came up with there, and I was like, I mean, I don't even think I came up with it there, but I'd come up with it before, and I used it there. And I was like, it was the first time I got to use the line, and I thought that's a pretty good little line. Maybe I'll start running with that on stage. And a week later, Jerry Seinfeld came out with his episode of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with guest Todd Barry. And he said almost the exact same line on his show.
Wow. And
so, the first thought was, well, I can't do that on stage. And then I was like, well, I wonder, everybody thinks they're more important than they are. Nobody even contacted me about it ever. But I thought maybe people are going to think I took the line from him. But then I was like, aha, mine is up there. The date is up there a week before his. No one can ever accuse me of taking the line. I came up with it a week before. It's documented in internet history. But as it sat with me longer, I started thinking, how cool is it that I had the same thought as Jerry Seinfeld, somebody who I've always looked up to and respected quite a tremendous amount. And so in that way, that episode is kind of special for me, just because I feel like I had, man, how cool is that I had the same thought as Jerry Seinfeld, and we both put it on our shows a week apart.
Yeah,
so I thought that was...
He has a new
cool.
show, too. It's called Modern Day Philosophers in Cars. Imagine that. Imagine Jerry's listening to this, just, okay, keep on going. I'll write that joke down.
that would change the way I thought about it.
You ever get picked up for writing? I got to imagine that's like, I would imagine shows would want to get this type of humor put up. You got any writing gigs?
No, I really don't get any writing gigs. I don't know how to get them.
What do you mean?
And I don't chase them.
How did you get on Artie Lange's show then? I mean, you've been on some big shows here. You've been on Mark Maron's show. You're just...
Anything I ever got, it's just because somebody invited me. Like, Artie invited me to do a show, so, and that's, after I did his show, I invited him to do my show. But we did a benefit for Patrice O'Neal's mom at Gotham Comedy Club, and she has diabetes, and he's been helping her out, and I wanted to do something. Patrice O'Neal really meant and still means so much to me, and I figured, I'm not in I was never like in his inner circle of friends. I didn't come up with him like Bill Burr or Robert Kelly or any of those guys, but my friendship with him meant a lot to me, and I thought, what can I do? What can I do to give anything back? Because it was very traumatic. Him, in many ways, him dying was very traumatic. Not only did I lose a friend, but I lost someone I looked up to, and the whole, it was, part of the reason I left New York. I felt like when he died, New York comedy as I knew it died. You know, it was time to go. It was the end of an era.
Yeah, it was completely surprising, too. I didn't see at all. I felt like he was in good health, but I didn't know the backstory.
Yeah, and I mean, it hit me in other ways, too, because we're both overweight, and we had a connection with that, and I really think in some way he saw himself in me, said to me at one point that in some way I reminded him of a younger him.
Mm.
And that meant like the world to me, because I really looked up and respected that guy. He was just a brilliant guy. And so yeah, long story short, I decided, let me try and do what I can to raise a little money for his mom, and that way I could give back. And Artie Lange did the show as one of the people, and we raised a little money. I don't know how much we even raised. I never got to find out, but I think it was, in the low thousands, I think, I hope. And yeah, at the end of the show, Artie came up to me. He's like, "Hey, funny stuff, you should come and do my show." So that's how I got on that.
Yeah.
And Mark Maron I've known from doing comedy, and at one point he said, "You should do my show," and I just followed up, and then I was on the show. You know, every 6 months I'd drop an email, "Hey, let's do the show."
Danny, you don't sound
by
like
the third email.
You're happy though. You should be ecstatic about these accomplishments. Is this not the case?
Oh, I'm very happy about them. I don't know. I'm just trying to tell you, there's no magic to the show business. There's no it's all very mom and pop shop the way my career's worked. You know, it's not there's no great mystique. People like, how do you get on these shows? And it's just basically someone says, "Hey, you want to do this?" I go, "Yeah, I want to do it. I'm very excited to do it." You know.
Yeah, but
and then I do it.
I know. But you are extremely talented. They obviously see stand-up. Your jokes are crafted extremely well. I'm trying to pump you up, Danny. I don't want you walking around depressed. I want you to have air conditioning. I want you to feel good because you're a major asset to us. So everything is going well for you. You have a lot of capabilities, and I think you're just scratching the surface. But this Modern Day Philosopher whole concept could be a book, and to couch philosophy in with comics so that you're sugarcoating it. If you didn't do that,
I'm working on putting this into a book. Me and Alex and another guy, we've been starting to compile certain pieces of episodes, and we're trying to put a coffee table book together.
Oh yeah, that would be just a perfect item. What's the future going to hold for you? Like, what do you see yourself? Do you want to get married? Do you want to have kids? Do you want to stay in LA?
I always love the question because it implies some kind of psychic capabilities.
Yeah, well,
the future holds for me. Well, depending on the day, I do want to get married and have kids. You know, some days I feel like it's an overwhelming and daunting thing, and some days I think, yeah, I really want to do that. You know, so that's a tough one because I don't have the stability mentally to answer that completely, you know, with any kind of confidence. But I think I want to get married, and I think I want to have kids. And career-wise, my ultimate dream still would be to be on Saturday Night Live.
Mm-hmm.
But if that doesn't happen, or even if it does, I'd like to tour and do storytelling shows.
Yes.
And I wrote a movie. I'd like to direct it and maybe do a part in it. I want to make movies. I mean, if I could do anything, I guess I would make movies, you know?
Well, what would you, I always ask this question in the podcast, what would you, if you could go back in time, you talked about moving forward in time, psych abilities, what would you tell yourself at a younger age, especially if you're having a really tough time? I mean, you're not that old, so what would you tell yourself when you're 15, 16, or if you're having a particularly tough time in life?
I would tell myself to trust myself more.
Mm-hmm.
I would tell myself, I would say, have confidence in yourself. And I would tell myself to just focus harder on what I wanted to do and drown out the negative voices, that were holding me back. I would tell myself, be comfortable being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I'm only now finally starting to be comfortable being me.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to worry so much, about just being me. And is that okay? And I think I annoyed a lot of people as a kid. My teachers, my dad, and I really got it in my head that I was just annoying. And I was so afraid of being myself because I thought everyone was just going to find me annoying. And I think as I've gotten older, I realized I'm not annoying. No. What the hell was that all about? Just be me. People are okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a lot less I'm still self-conscious, but I'm a lot less. I beat up on myself a lot less. And I wish I could instill that in myself younger, but that's probably the answer there.
Yeah, I mean, what can we do, Danny, to get you believing in yourself? You must believe in yourself. And I don't want you to get caught up in what a lot of comics do. You might have discussed this with Bill Burr, that you'll lose your edge. Did you discuss that with him? Was that your podcast? That if you get happy,
yes,
that your comedic edge is going to be gone. Do you believe
he said
that?
That's a lot of nonsense.
Yeah.
He said that's ridiculous.
But what do you believe?
Well, I have days where I'm a lot more confident than other days. It goes back to your writing question. Part of it is just that I'm not super motivated to be a writer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like going into a room every day and having work kind of feel like the stuff I'm trying to avoid in life. So going into an office and having work done on someone's desk, if somebody called me up and said, do you want to write for a show I like Jimmy Kimmel I like a lot. If somebody said, do you want to come and write for Jimmy Kimmel, I couldn't say no to that because it would be too exciting of an opportunity, and I need the money for sure, I would do it. But I wouldn't push to do it, it would have to be offered to me. So it's not something what I'm doing now is I'm trying to focus just on pursuing things that I really want to do. Like I wrote that movie script I was telling you about. I had a lot of fun with that. I'm working on this book thing, and I'm enjoying that process. And the stand-up, I keep really last night I did this terrible show, and they were playing Jaws 3 in the background, and the waitress was so loud and obnoxious, and you know how comedy clubs, the waitress is supposed to, this was at a restaurant, but still it's a comedy show going on.
Sure.
And the waitress is supposed to kind of tone her voice down a little bit, not to disturb the comedian. Could I take your order? Instead, she was being even louder than the comedian.
Mm-hmm.
And she was also, this is really funny. One comic was on stage, and he had set up to his joke. I don't even remember what the joke was. He just says, short people are angry. And this waitress, she says so loud to her waitress friend next to her, she goes, short men are angry. Short men are angry. Short women are not angry. What's he talking about? Short people are angry. He goes, short men, yes, not women. So I'm I'm putting my hand on my forehead. I'm like, geez, this lady is just then anyway, she comes up to the table next to me where these people are sitting to refill their like iced teas, and she goes, "Hear anything? Short people are angry." She goes, "Short men are angry, not short women, right?" And the people just kind of look at her like, "I don't know what the hell I'm trying to watch the show. What are you talking about?" So I was thinking, that's pretty bad. Then she goes up to the bartender so that everybody could hear it, just in case anybody didn't hear it the first time or the second time. She goes up to the bartender and she goes, "Do you believe this guy on stage saying short people are angry? Short women aren't angry." And then I noticed that she's short and she's getting really angry about it, so I thought there was some kind of funny irony to that, but I was like, this is the worst show ever. Then, another guy, there's a black guy in the crowd, he doesn't like some joke that some comedian says, so he heckles him by going, "Well, that boy's got quite some imagination, doesn't he?"
Oh, jeez.
So I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? What am I doing? I drove, the show's in the valley. It's not close by. It's the whole night is gone in the show. And then out of doing that show, I got one little piece of one joke better than it's ever been. And I realized that is what it's all about. Like, it doesn't matter all these factors that make it a horrible show. I'm thinking, why am I wasting my time in this restaurant? It's for no money. It's all these stupid things. And then I got this little piece of this joke that I've been working on. This little, it's like there's just little problems, and a little piece of the problem to solve, you get a clue,
Yeah.
It's like detective work. It's like you found another little piece to crack the case. And I'm like, this was a great night. And I couldn't believe how happy I was. I felt, my feelings went from like, starting to slip into depression and thinking, what the fuck am I doing here? And why is my life this shitty and my career is this shitty that these are the shows that I do, to being like, man, this was a great night. I'm so happy it came out. So I don't even know what the question was.
No, it doesn't matter. That was fantastic. And it just brings me to a thought. Did you ever see the documentary called Undefeated?
No.
You should definitely watch that. It's we just had the coach on. It won an Oscar. His name's Coach Bill Courtney. He's down in Tennessee, and he's doing extremely well financially, but he wants to contribute, so he's coaching a team that hasn't won a game in like 10 years. It's all inner city kids. These kids it's the worst possible situation, and it's a complete real documentary. And it's called Undefeated, but they lose the first game. They lose a lot, and he's just, his points that he's like, it's not, your character is going to be revealed not when you're winning and things are going good. It's like after everything's punched you in the face, life's beating you down to the point where you don't want to get up. But if you get up and you keep going forward, then, and I'm not a football fan at all, then that's what's gonna make you strong. That's that comedy club. You should have been thanking that short little tiny waitress over there.
Yeah.
No, but you pushing through that is gonna make you such a juggernaut of a comic. What are they gonna throw at you after you're doing a comedy show where literally the staff is heckling you, which I've never heard of before, but.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see that kind of thing. But you're right. I mean, it's resistance strength, Mm-hmm. The harder you have to push, I guess.
Yeah, you want a little bit of stress, not too much that it's going to break you, but at the same time, you can't let it, because comedians, it's probably the hardest performing job ever. It's incredibly difficult to, even if you kill, probably the worst thing is when you destroy and then you go home and it's all gone. Do you have nights like that where you destroyed it and you go home and you don't feel good?
It bothers some people. It never really, if I have a good night and my set goes well, I'm happy,
Mm-hmm.
I might have a lot of energy after that I'm not sure where to place it. But I've become like like a hyper kid. I get excited, I get happy. I'm like, this was a fun night. I get pretty jazzed about it, So, I mean, I'd much rather have a good night and then, my friend Matty Goldberg, who was on one of the episodes of Modern Day Philosophers, which was also one of the ones I was going to say is one of my favorite talks, was with my buddy Matty Goldberg. He had a joke when we first started doing stand-up comedy that describes exactly what you're talking about. And I remember the joke. He would say, he would be getting laughs. He's always been very funny. And then he'd say, when I'm here, I'm a star. That's my Matty impression, I guess. When I'm here, I'm a star, but as soon as I leave this club, I'm going to be on a subway, and no one's going to know who I am. And I sometimes just want to tell people. I just want to be like, do you know what I did there tonight? I don't remember exactly how he worded it. He said, all that whole crowd loved me. Do you know about what I did? Do you know who I am? I just go up to a girl and I say this to her on the subway. And then the punchline was, you go, I got to be honest, the pepper spray does go through the glasses,
That's a good one.
I mean, he doesn't tell that joke anymore because it was one of his early jokes. And, comedians, we grow out of our jokes and then we don't want to go back. But I still think that's a great joke, and I think it describes the feeling that you're talking about. But I think it's a great joke, and I understand it, but it's not the way I am, Mm-hmm. It's not. It's the way some people are, but for me, I have a good night. I celebrate that, I enjoy it. And the only problem is the energy. Like, sometimes it's hard for me to fall asleep for hours after that because I'm on a high from it, I'm excited, and I'm pumped, the adrenaline is, or whatever it is, I'm just, I'm ready to do another show. I'm ready to go do something else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to, one of the things I have a problem with is blacks and black. It's black. The blacks. No,
right,
it's the blacks and whites in life. It's just finding those gray areas because everything seems very black and white to me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, so when things are going good, I get really confident and I get really happy, and I'm like, things are going great, and nothing. It can't be stopped. It's all wonderful. I've cracked life. I've cracked it open. I figured out the code. I'm going to be happy forever. And then when things start going bad, I'm like, it's all going to hell. It's all miserable, and there's no point. And I can't. Everything is. I can't. I feel overpowered, and I can't break through. And it's just there's no way this is ever going to work out. And it's, for me, one of the great challenges in my life has been trying to find those gray areas and live in comfortability within them, and also tell myself it's not always going to be all good and it's not always going to be all bad, and ride out the bad and ride out the good, and find those happy medium spots. But
I completely agree. I think, and I hate to keep bringing up the coach, but he hammered this through my head so many times. But he's like, listen, you could be out there and people could be robbing your house, killing your family. There's nothing you can really do. So all you can really have is your word. So if you give your word, make sure you keep it, because that's the only thing that can really be nothing else is really secured in this life. You can really just at this point say what you're going to do and then do it. Also, his point to if you're doing good, then you're not doing bad. Like if you're doing bad, or if you're doing wrong, then you're if you're doing wrong, you're not doing right. And if you're doing right, you're not doing wrong. So as long as you're doing right, you don't have to keep this complex, like thinking about what's going on. Am I doing the right thing today? Just try to, from the first step, try to just do right all day long. I know it sounds like a simple complex, but I think...
No, Absolutely. It's very true. It's certainly good to recognize that, and it's a tough thing, like, for people sometimes. You gotta believe, you know, in the good. You know, you gotta. I'm not articulating this thought very well, but basically, if you are doing good things, you gotta be comfortable in that. You can't, you know if you're doing good.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And you got to tell yourself, yeah, you got to pat yourself on the back about it a little bit. There is room for humility, but you also have to say, you know what? I'm a good guy. I'm doing good things. And that can shape your whole self-image, you know, because it's so easy for the negative voices sometimes to be like, you're a lousy guy. You're a bad guy. What do you think? You deserve things? In this world, you deserve nothing. And then if you look at it logically and rationally and break it down, you say, wait a minute, let's talk about deserve, because you know, people throw around the term entitlement. Somebody once told me on a show, they said, you strike me as, they were trying to get me going. They were trying to set me up, but they said, you strike me as an entitled person. Which I don't think that was founded in anything. I think they were really just trying to push my buttons. But it made me think for a while after that. Like, what is an entitled person? Are there people who have a right to be entitled? Because I think it's thrown around as an insult a lot, entitled. But I thought someone's entitled to something. Like if you buy a house, you're entitled to the deed to the home, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in a relationship, you know, you're in a committed relationship, you're entitled to be able to trust the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's things that, so is being an entitled person a bad thing? I thought not necessarily. It's only bad if you feel entitled to things you shouldn't feel entitled to. So saying to someone you're entitled is a silly thing to say, because, sure, everybody's entitled, I think, to something, even to your opinion. That person, I should have said that if I would have thought of it at the time. Well, you're entitled to your opinion. But everybody's entitled to something. The question is, does someone feel entitled to something that they don't deserve? So, going off of that premise, if you deserve good things, you should be entitled to good things. Mm-hmm. If you're a good person, you should deserve good things. And if you deserve good things, you should be entitled to good things. So, if you're a good person, you should feel entitled to good things. And how do you be a good person? You do good things. So if you're doing good things, there's no reason that you should feel anything but entitled to good things. And I think that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, 1,000%. Because entitlement and entitled can go both ways. You could be extremely wealthy and feel entitled, and it could kill you inside, and you could be, just not doing anything and feel like you should get things for nothing. But it made me think about, how much thinking you're doing, Danny, and how do you believe in God?
Yeah, I believe in God.
Okay, because a lot of times, and there was a great author, Nassim Taleb, it was basically a financial book, but talks about a big section of it, how humans just will never know. Even we're just never going to know. So the idea just to let it up to God it is such a release.
You know why I think it's important, because I think it's very easy to lose humility if you don't believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's important for other reasons, but I think the number one reason why I would encourage someone who's on the fence and wants to pick, because it's very hard, because I've been there too, where you're like really struggling with this idea. I mean, if you can either ignore it and push it aside and say, I don't know what the hell I believe. But then, what are you doing? You're going to go through your one time around not even knowing and not even trying to figure out what you think? Like, then how do you know about anything? Then how do you form any kind of opinion? Ultimately, you have to pick a side on something, on everything, really. I mean, you ever listen to anybody being interviewed and they have an opinion, you could say to yourself, well, who are they to say that opinion? That opinion could be wrong, you know? Why are they telling me this? It's not a fact, it's an opinion. So don't have opinions then, you know? Or you could say, no, everybody, going back to the word entitled, everybody is entitled to an opinion, you know? So what's my opinion on this matter? And because it's one of those unanswered questions of the universe, you should be able to have an opinion on it. And I think for me, it was very, you know, like I said, I do well in the gray areas. I like the blacks and whites. And it was very important for me to make a decision on that. What do I believe? And I put the factors together and things that I see as evidence for there being a God, and it's all perception and it's all objective. And how do I relate to the idea of God, and what does prayer mean to me? And but I think the most important thing it is a decision. You know, people pretend it's not a decision. That's the funniest part. It's a decision to believe in God. It's a decision. You decide it or you decide against it. Because it's not, you know, it's not a thing that we have a clear answer on. So it is a decision. You either decide or you decide against it. So in any decision, you have to have factors that lead you up to deciding and and forming an opinion. One of the big ones for me was believing in something bigger than myself, because I think it's very, very hard to maintain any kind of humility if you think you're responsible for everything. And also, it's a lot of pressure to put on you to be like, I'm in complete control, when you're not. Like I said about Hurricane Sandy, I was not in. Even the insurance companies call that an act of God, you know, maybe because they don't have a better word for it. But, yeah, so I think it's important to also always be questioning your beliefs and always reevaluating them and either, you know, forming new beliefs or new opinions or just reinforcing the ones you have. And so, yeah, I believe in God. And
is he active? Do you think he's active out there, or he's letting it play out?
Yeah. Well, I like to believe that God is active in our lives, but I choose the words I like to believe, you know? I like to believe that.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I'd like to believe that that's true. I think prayer has been very helpful for me. It puts you in a meditative state. It forces you to be grateful for the things in your life. It forces you to stop and think about the things in your life and to sort of look at a leaf a little differently. Yeah. I know that sounds really lofty and almost pretentious, but it's true. When I'm praying, I usually pray outside, and I look at the leaves a little differently than I do when I'm not, and I think about, you know, all those little veins running through the leaves and how each one of those leaves is just kind of like a masterpiece, you know? It's just an incredible work of art, you know? Every little leaf is, and then if you have a microscope, you know, everything becomes art. I mean, I kind of see the world as art. I guess it's because I've always been an artist, but going back to Van Gogh, you look at a Van Gogh painting and it's just like, I mean, hard to tell how it hits you. The way it hits me, it's just breathtaking. It's like amazing. You're like, holy crap, look at those brush strokes and just the way he layers the paint on there and the choice of those vibrant colors and how they react with each other. And you're like, this is insanely good. You know, this is just the movement of the paint makes you feel a movement. And you're like, this is just amazing art. And then you look at a leaf, and you can look at a leaf and you can kind of get that feeling. You'd be like, holy shit. There's so many of these, and they're all exquisite, you know? They're just fucking amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think prayer is important because it gives you that moment to slow things down and look at the world a little bit under a microscope and kind of appreciate everything around you. And sometimes you can walk around during the day, or anyway I can, and you kind of feel like you're in a haze, and the world can kind of make me feel hungover sometimes. Mm-hmm. Without any booze or anything. You can, just the heaviness of the day can kind of make you feel that way, and everything becomes pastel, you know, everything becomes really soft and not sharp, you know. It all kind of blurs together, and you just tune it all out, and you go about your day, and you get the shit done that you need to get done. And then it's important to sometimes step back and look at the sharp image in front of you and say, how did I just walk through this all? And, you know,
damn,
not appreciate it.
That was deep right there. That was beautiful. You got a great mastery of the language, and it made me even think of a spin-off to Modern Day Philosopher you might want to do is, you know, pull up a Van Gogh and discuss that. I try to share art. I'm newly discovering old artists, a lot of Japanese artists. I always appreciated somebody's ability. I can't draw. You're an illustrator as well. Is that true?
Yeah, it's true.
They told me I don't have the hand discipline, but the ability to take what's in your mind and put it on paper or canvas is just an incredible thing.
You know what it is? Even the hand discipline is one thing, but that has to do with like precision or whatever. But you know, talking about other podcasts, the one that I've had an idea and a passion to do, and I probably will do it once the right time hits, is I want to discuss jazz with people because I'm a huge fan of jazz, and I'm specifically a huge fan of, you know, the clarinet, the New Orleans style of jazz, and of course, if you're a fan of jazz clarinet from that period, you'd be crazy not to be a big fan of Bechet. And Sidney Bechet had a way of playing that when you hear it, it's just amazing. Like, people will talk about how he plays something here. Like, I think there's a story of a jazz musician who heard him play and said, like, there's no note like that. There's whatever he just did, he just played a note that doesn't exist. And music being art also, it comes from inside you, you know, it's a feeling. And I'm trying to, like, tap into that. Like, I mean, that's, like, I think that's what was great about Patrice O'Neill also, is just he kind of, like, did comedy almost like Bechet did jazz. Like, it wasn't precise, but it was flowing, you know, and it was passionate, and it kind of played with his whole body and his soul, you know? Mm-hmm. It just can't really explain it better than that, but music, it's just like, it's such a feeling, and if you can, the truly great artist, which I'm not yet, but I strive to be, can take the feeling and the emotion and use the tool, the brush, the instrument, the microphone, and express and sort of just turn emotion into art, you know? Mm-hmm. Turn emotion into words, turn emotion into images, turn emotion into sound. So that's like where we all want to be, I think, you know? So when you talk about the hand discipline, just forget about the hand discipline, because, yeah, maybe you're not going to be the guy who can draw for a Spider-Man comic, but if you can somehow take emotion from inside of you and let it flow through your hand and into whatever the tool is, the brush, the pencil, whatever it is, and onto the page, then you don't have to worry about that kind of thing at all. It's just you're translating emotion, which is something that you can feel and no one else can, it's inside of you, into something that everybody can share. I think that's what, you know, art is about, being able to share an experience, a feeling, in a way that, you know, I think, Dylan Brody had a really great quote on Modern Day Philosophers where he was talking about it's art being the way of, you know, I wish I could remember word for word, but he was talking about, like, it's revelation in a way that, what's that?
We can cut it in.
Oh, let me look it up real quick.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I wrote it down. I thought it was such a great quote. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to look it up. Anyway, I can't find it.
No, we'll cut it in and pretend like it happened.
But it was basically, he was saying it's a revelation of a previously unseen, you know, you're basically what I'm trying to convey, that Dylan Brody was able to convey very articulately, was that you are, as an artist, you're able to share something in a way that it hasn't been shared before, you know? I can't, you know, the only way I can let you feel what I'm feeling anytime is if I write about it in a beautiful way that you're able to feel from it, or if I paint it, or if I say it and articulate it in a certain way. And these are all forms of art, you know? If I can play it musically, and if I can do a transference of feeling, you know, that's what art is. It's a transference of feeling through a third-party medium, you know, through a, I don't know. I don't even know. I get started on these.
It's literally impossible to describe that thing. There's no words. It's when you have a true piece of art, it puts you in that moment, and I do see what you mean especially with Patrice and a lot of particular comedians, but it could be almost anything that they're doing with just in the moment they're making a decision that turns out to be beautiful, and it sweeps you up in that moment. And a lot of times I think the podcast does that. Your stand-up does that. Other people's stand-up definitely does that. If that's insightful at all.
Yeah, and it's so yeah. What I was trying to tell you is, don't worry about precision with your hand when you're making art. just worry about just trying to get that feeling. A truly great artist can put feeling down on a canvas more than image. You know, if the image itself should be like code.
Okay.
You know, like computer code for a feeling. You know, that your mind reads and go, oh shit. Because that's why, like, I love Norman Rockwell, but I feel like Van Gogh is so much more powerful because Norman Rockwell is describing just there is a feeling to it, but it's like he's just sort of showing you a slice of American history, a slice of the culture of what it, you know, an idealized look of it, you know, and all his stuff is cool, but it's also like, what's it really saying to you? It's just sort of saying, like, ain't small town life great?
In the 1950s.
And you're like, I guess small town life can have some charm. He's like, ain't it great? You go, yeah, it's great. Didn't I do a great job of showing you? Like, yeah, you did. How does that make you feel? Fine. Where's the cafeteria? You know, you go to the Norman Rockwell Museum, you feel like a sandwich. You know.
Yeah.
You go. You're like, that's nice. Maybe I'll have some apple pie. But
you couldn't be any more accurate. That is exactly what I want. I'm like, let me get a milkshake or a malt or and a coffee.
Yeah, it's like, and like Andy Warhol, like, did some cool stuff, but like, I don't know what it really leaves me with. You know, Warhol is more conceptual, and it's like, now I'm gonna get into like a philosophical conversation about art with you, and I don't know enough, but I only know what I feel from it. You know, I don't have enough information, but I do feel like when I look at it, I go, yeah, I guess everything is kind of like a fucking factory, and it's all just mass-produced bullshit. Fine, you're right. Good message. So if Rockwell had a message, I guess it's just, ain't small town life great? And if Warhol had a message, it's like, ain't it all just fucking bullshit, you know? And it's all just crap, right? It's all just mass-produced crap. And you go, yeah, it is. But when you look at Van Gogh, you look at a painting and you're like overwhelmed with different feelings and emotions based on what the painting is, and it can be like chaotic, and it can be calm, and it can be like, you'd be like, oh man, this guy had a lot running through him. It's like Bechet, like, it's like listening to Benny Goodman or listening to Sidney Bechet. You listen to Benny Goodman, and it's like great swing music, and you're like, man, this is great, I feel wonderful. You listen to Bechet, and there's like soul in that. You're like, man, that is not coming out of the clarinet, that's coming out of him, you know? It's coming out of him through the clarinet, but it's like that music, he's sharing a little piece of his soul with you. And so, yeah, I'm going on these long rants because I don't know why. Maybe
I don't know. I like the rants. I think it's pretty much like music coming out. The idea that you put this much thought in it, that you're able to flow like that, I appreciate it. And you know, I don't want to take up all your day. What else you got going on today?
Oh no, I don't worry about that. I just got to write today, and oh fuck, you're taking up my whole day. No, no, I got to do some writing and maybe some. Actually, I'm gonna paint a little bit.
When's the next podcast coming out?
All right, that's what I also had to do today. I have to put up the new episode of the podcast. So that the new one comes out today with Cliff Nestorov.
Yeah, because I saw the preview, but I didn't see it yet.
And next week is Carl Reiner, which I'm really excited about.
Hell yeah.
I mean, I'm excited about all of them. I'm excited about Cliff too, but Carl Reiner on the show is, I can't wait for you to hear that one.
I'm excited, and I was gonna say this off camera, or off mic, but I think I would like you to go get an air conditioner, and we're gonna sponsor the next show if you'll have it.
Okay. Well, if you're comfortable with that, I appreciate it. I don't want you to feel any kind of pressure to do that.
No. Trust me. I want you producing. I want you to build an empire there. I want you to put this, even crowdfunding this movie on the site. I think you got a lot of things that are going to make me laugh, and it's something we're going to support. Trust me, it's a good deal for us. I wouldn't say sponsor the show if I didn't think it was a good deal. I don't know.
There's a part of me that's like, man, did I just gangster an air conditioner out of this guy?
It's good. That's what you got to do. It's working. I want you comfortable in that. I don't need Larry Miller going over there. First off, the birds were fantastic. I thought they were good. But
the tweeting of those little sparrows?
Yeah. You should have been just shooting them.
They built a nest right outside the window underneath there's like Spanish tiles on the roofs, and they built a little nest under the tile, but right over the window. It's like they're purposely messing with me. And it's very tough, it's a stupid place for a nest because they built it on an angle. So I don't know what they were thinking. And the babies fall out of the nest, and they keep landing in front. So the way the building is set up, the studio that I record in is upstairs, and I live downstairs. And so when I go upstairs, I got to hear the tweeting, the constant tweeting, which is probably these birds complaining because, they're every day is like, are we going to fall out of here? It's like they're constantly on a ride at Six Flags or something, and it's terrifying. But so that's probably what all that tweeting is about. Then you go downstairs, and then there's a dead one smack right in front of my front door to the downstairs, because two separate doors for the. So I go downstairs, and there's a dead sparrow. I go upstairs, they're screaming for dear life. It's very sad. One of them fell down, and it didn't die. So I went and I bought a bird cage and did a little research on sparrow, what to feed him, and I got some food, and I took care of him, and then, 2 days later, he was dead. So I got stuck with this, expensive bird cage and all the sparrow stuff, and, I guess he probably had internal injuries. So it's a horrible thing, that these sparrows.
Sounds like Alfred Hitchcock is haunting your house, but with sparrows.
Yeah. He's still around.
You know what they'll do? They fly into if you have a glass window that's too clean, they just fly head first into it. That's why they get knocked out.
Yeah, that's a good excuse to not clean your windows, isn't it?
That's why I still have tape from Sandy up. So besides that, I think I'm gonna let you go because I want you to get some of this stuff done. But in the future, I would love to get you back on. And
yeah, anytime. I loved it. It was a great talk, and you're a very nice guy and very, very good. Like I said on the ego to talk to you because you had very nice things to say to me, and I appreciate it.
Well, trust me, if you were here, we're opening 2 gyms up, and one in Irvine and one in L.A. One quick question: how do you feel? I feel like I'm extremely in New York. I like how integrated it is here. My neighbors are all different nationalities, all different people. When you moved out to L.A., do you feel comfortable out there?
Same thing, even maybe more so. My neighbors, it's on the block, largely Hispanic families, Mexican. Mm-hmm. But next door is Egyptian Christians, and the guy's fantastic. He brings me dates over the fence.
Oh, nice.
He's got not dates, figs. He's got a fig tree, and he goes, my son, neighbor, please, and he shows up with his 2 hands open, full of figs, fresh figs from the tree. He's always giving me figs. He's a sweet guy. Black families on the block, I'm Jewish. They got Jews on the block. There's a Hasidic family on the block. So, I mean, it's still, I still got all of that going on. And on top of that, we always have people from Airbnb coming and stay with us because we rent out a room usually. Now my friend who's a director is living there, so not as much anymore. But we used to do this Airbnb stuff, and we had people from all over the world. So I never really lost that feeling of, I had one person booked from before my buddy Liam moved in, who's an insanely awesome director. Mm-hmm. If anyone ever checks out Liam O'Neill, I want to give him a quick plug if I can. Is that all right?
Go ahead, please. We're going to be backlinking every single reference you did too, but go ahead.
Oh, that's great. Tell people to go to the YouTube video, I Still Have a Soul. Okay. And it's a spec commercial that he made for HBO Boxing After Dark. But forget about the fact that it's a commercial. It's a piece of art. It's a short film. He wrote it. He directed it. It's awesome. And it's got a lot of hits. It's really cool. And he's doing some more stuff. Anyway, he and I made a web series together in 2009 called Rise of the Radio Show, which we just finally got to put up online on Funny or Die. But it never got seen too much because there was some interest in buying it, so we had to take it off the web right in the height of its heat, mm-hmm. and then it was in negotiations, and it never wound up getting sold. So we put it on Funny or Die now. But it's pretty cool that he's living with me. He's kind of a genius, this guy Liam O'Neill. He's an amazing writer director. So anyway, that was a good sacrifice to get rid of the Airbnb people. For Liam, it makes sense, but otherwise I really enjoyed having all these people from all over the world stay with us. Mm-hmm. Before Liam came, I had one booking that I had left that I didn't want to cancel. So my girlfriend and I put an air mattress in the living room, and we gave the guy our room. And he was there for a few days from Algeria this week. Jeez. And we watched the World Cup together. Nice. And we watched Germany beat Algeria, which was rough on him. The guy was so funny. He's like, my girlfriend was out for the day, so it was just me and Liam and the Algerian. And we're watching in the living room, and it's pretty hot in the apartment, so we're like, let's get out of here and go to a bar and watch the rest of this. So we go to a bar. We watch the rest of the game. It's pretty disappointing for the Algerian. And, Germany winning.
For Jews, yeah.
We were all kind of rooting for Algeria. Yeah. And so afterwards, the guy, he's so funny, man. That's why I love having these people from around the world come and stay with me. It's like, I want to see Beverly Hills, the sign of Beverly Hills. Can we see the sign of Beverly Hills? So we said, okay, sure. So me and Liam jump in the front two seats, and the Algerian jumps in the back seat. And he keeps popping his head up between the two of us, excited like a little kid. The guy's in his 50s. He's like, oh, this right there, driver, please, pull over, please, picture for me, please. So me and Liam were like dying laughing, or Liam and I, we're dying laughing because he's like a little kid. So we were like, okay, so we're pulling over and taking pictures for him, trading off. The Hollywood sign, please. So then we passed like the Beverly Hills Hotel. This is like a real swanky hotel, and he's like, Hotel California. And I'm like, you want to go in for, the guy celebrates Ramadan, so he couldn't have a drink or anything. We had a drink, Liam and I, and we brought the Algerian into there, and the whole time, this guy is so fucking funny, man. He's singing, welcome to the Hotel California. It's such a lovely place. It's such a lovely place. So how could you not love having Airbnb people,
It's crazy.
But yeah, I mean, I know what you mean, but no, I don't suffer from the loss of diversity here in LA. Not where I live.
Good. I heard in an early episode, are you still a vegan?
Am I a vegan?
Yeah.
Well, I've never been vegan, but
No.
I do, I'm a vegan and more, I think I said in the early episode, I said, ideally I would be a vegan. And I agree with their philosophies, more or less. But at the end of the day, I still want to eat some meat,
Yeah.
So it's, maybe the ideal me would be a vegan, but I haven't reached that point of enlightenment yet. I still eat meat, but I do it seldom. And when I eat out usually vegan, I don't. When I'm at home, I only get kosher meat. I think it's a little better. It's still not that ethical, but it's a little more ethical. And
No, it's probably a lot more ethical, actually.
well, the way they kill the animals is a lot better, but the way they let the animals live is not much better. So, I still have issues with it all.
It
I don't
depends.
know. I mean,
We have, just coming from the health background, and I started interviewing doctors and scientists early on because I was trying to figure out all this back. And then for like New Jersey, most of the like 80-20 chuck is milk cows. So these milk cows basically live outside, they roam, but the meat isn't considered quality. It's considered, it's the Texas beef. It's the highly processed where they're keeping them all in pens. And there's California's got to have some places where they're just, the meat's raised kosher and also humane. That's not a fortune.
yes, I have heard that there is such a place. I don't know what it is yet. I should be on it more, but I'm not. I'm not perfect, but I also heard it's very, very expensive. But I guess, you're paying for not humanity, but you're paying for a more humane thing, so it's worth it. I mean, yes, ideally I would like to be either eating meat that lived a good life and died a quick and painless death, or be vegan. Because it's hard to take happiness out of suffering,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of guilty, it's kind of like, I'm not one of these like, self-righteous fucks, that are like, so into themselves and their causes and all that shit. And I don't want to preach to anybody, but I do want to do what I feel feels right for me. And I don't like the idea of, I said on the show, it's a weird thing because for anything to live, something else has to die.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to live, something's got to die. It's going to be a plant, it's going to be an animal, but something alive has got to die so that you could live. And for that thing to live, usually something's got to die, a bird lives because the worm dies, and then you eat the bird and then you live, So death is very much a part of life, but it doesn't have to include suffering, You could. I think about in terms of kosher. The kosher animals are non-aggressive animals.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at it, predators are not kosher animals. Like a cow is kosher, a shark is not, but a fluke is, or a flounder is. A tiger is not, You look at these animals that are aggressive, and they're not kosher. And I think that's because the philosophy is that, you are what you eat type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're putting predatory, pain-causing creatures in you, maybe you'll become that way too. And maybe that's just, that idea might just be abstract, But I think
no, I don't think. I mean, it's a good. I think initially maybe the early people that wrote who wrote the Torah. Not do we know? But that's when the recommendations not to eat kosher was written, correct?
I misunderstood the question.
The Torah, the Old Testament, and when it discusses kosher, is that when it's mentioned?
Yeah, it talks about what animals are kosher, which animals are not kosher, and then it talks about how to kill the animals that are kosher, and it's very specific, and it's very they have to die instantly, for one thing. There can't be any suffering. There's a certain spot on the neck. And if you hit that spot right away with the blade, they're out. There's no kicking around. There's no bleeding it out. There's no, if you watch these videos of how they killed regular cows, regular meat, non-kosher cow meat, beef, they're shooting them. It's an imperfect science.
Mm-hmm.
They'll get shot in the head with a piece of metal.
Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't kill them right away. Maybe it only scrapes across their brain and they're hemorrhaging from the head. Happens all the time. And so the last few moments of this creature's life are just agonizing and horrible, and then you're sitting there and you're enjoying it, and something doesn't feel right about that to me.
Well, you have chicken, right?
I have a chicken, yeah.
Why don't you get a bunch of chickens and get some eggs out of them? Is that kosher or not?
Yeah, I get a random egg here, man, from the one I got. But, I wanted to go back to another thing about kosher, is that the animal can't witness the death of any of the other animals.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's incredibly important, because the animal knows. They have intelligence. They understand these things. If an animal sees the other animal being killed, think about the anxiety that's going to cause within that animal for the rest of its life, living under the conditions. And even from a culinary point of view, the meat is going to be better because the hormones, all those fear hormones are not being released. Those chemicals of fear, those chemicals of suffering, and the way meat gets really tense, if an animal suffers a lot because it releases these things into its system, anyway, so I think that's all pretty important. I think there's a lot of I'm a big supporter of vegans. I'm a big supporter of vegetarians. I'm not one of them, but I'm right there cheering them on, and I try to do my best.
In my mind, just out of habit, I'm trying to tailor, maybe this is unsolicited advice, but I certainly don't. I heard on Artie's show you said you had high blood sugar, right? Is that true?
That I have high blood sugar?
Yeah.
Did I say I had high blood sugar?
I thought you did, maybe not. But in either case, I just want to make sure that you're healthy and you're doing well. So
I may have had. For a little while I had a problem with it. I wonder if when I recorded that I gotta go back now. But I had a little bit of a problem with it for a little while, but I had a recent blood test and they said I'm okay. So that's good.
Good. Well, that's what we want to hear because we want you.
Are you talking about on Artie Lange's
show,
not when he was on my show?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about now. Okay, that makes sense. I was thinking about when he was on Modern Day Philosophers. No, when I did Artie's show, I was telling him a story about when a doctor had told me that I was pre-diabetic. This is years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I got in my head that the diabetes had kicked in.
Okay.
And I called Patrice O'Neill up after agonizing for days about this and not eating because I was afraid everything I would eat would put me into a diabetic coma, and I was very, very paranoid and very, anxiety-ridden. So Patrice O'Neill, being the wonderful guy that he was, talked me through it for like 2.5 hours and got me to get the confidence to go get checked out at the doctor and put my neuroses aside, and I found out that, no, I didn't have diabetes, thank God, and then I was all right. And then I had the awkward situation of, because Patrice kept calling to check in on me and see how I'm doing, and I was embarrassed to tell him after he divulged such intimate information to me about his diabetes. I was embarrassed. I felt like I had robbed him of information that I shouldn't have gotten because I going back to that entitlement, I felt I wasn't entitled to have heard these intimate things about his life with diabetes now that I didn't have it. So I was avoiding his phone calls until I finally confessed and told him I didn't have it. And he said, well, now you got to drop all those diabetes jokes. He's like, you're not allowed to do any of those jokes now that you wrote about. And that's when I felt super guilty. I was like, I hadn't written one joke about it. And I thought, man, I started beating up on myself. Like, see, like a real comedian would have had a half hour on this already. Mm-hmm. Patrice already expected that I had material to drop. I had nothing. And I felt so bad. Then I felt so bad about that. I was like, so I thought that was pretty funny. But not, thank God I'm okay. So
that's what we're concerned with. We want you feeling good. I think if you're happy, you're going to be able to produce just as much work. And there's going to be low points, but at no point should you say, what the hell am I doing here? You're doing some good work. Unfortunately, you can't see the amount of people you're affecting. And as this keeps moving, you're going to, I think, have an audience. Next time you come to New York, we're definitely going to sell the club out. Do you have any thoughts about coming to New York, doing a show?
Well, that's very awesome. Thanks. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to be. Well, I'm going to be in New York in September for my buddy Tony. I'm the best man at his wedding.
Good.
Which is pretty exciting. I've never been the best man before. I never even came close. But I'm going to be the best man at Tony's wedding. And depending on what my schedule is like, I'll probably try to extend the trip a few days and do some shows. So.
Well, definitely. We're going to be supporting the hell out of it. Is there any other things you want to plug, talk about?
Well, I'd like to plug my buddy Matty Goldberg's book.
Good.
He has a book out called Brain Humor, which is the story of him doing comedy. And in many ways, one or two of the chapters are my story, too, because we started out at the New York Comedy Club together, and he paints the picture of it so perfectly of what that time was like at the New York Comedy Club. So I feel very close to the book in that way, and the fact that he's my friend, and then the fact that he mentions me in the book, and then it's just a very powerful, emotional book because he talks about losing a friend of his, and he also talks about surviving a brain tumor. So I think he'd be a good guy to get on your show, too.
That would be great, considering I just talked to Brian Bishop, Ball Brian. You know him from Adam Carolla, and he just, he had a brain tumor himself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
I'm going to grab his book right now. He's got to put an audio book out for these my listeners, but I'm grabbing his hardcover. Well,
you know, I hear something funny. Matty Goldberg just started calling me as I said his name on the other line. I wonder if I can get you guys on the call.
Give it a shot.
Hold on. Hello?
I'm here.
Yeah, I didn't know how to merge the calls, but That was Matt. He called me up. He said he's got a good story for me. He's always got a good story. So.
I like that. I like his cover art, by the way.
Yeah. The photo.
Yeah, I like that. I'm big on the cover art. That's usually...
It's a great book. It's a powerful book, so I'll plug that. And other than that, I just plugged the podcast, Modern Day Philosophers. Check it out. Download it. Tell people about it. What you're doing, publicizing it, I can't thank you enough.
Oh, we will.
Getting the word to more people is the most I can ask.
All right. One question. We do want to sponsor the next podcast or whatever. If you want to just send me the details, I have no idea what the rate system I just agreed to.
All right, cool. I'll send it to you, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think we'll do it. But I really appreciate this. Email me now, and I'll get that done quick for you.
Awesome. All right, thanks so much.
I really appreciate it. You're fantastic. This has been extremely educational. I'm going to listen to this several times over, and I'm going to be just waiting for every single Modern Day Philosopher to come out, and everything else you do, Danny. Fantastic. Get out there, do some art, and enjoy your day.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. It's a great show.
All right, buddy.
Thank you.